The Spoken Token is a proud member of the Pod Studio One podcast network. Hello, everybody, and welcome into the big show. I am Larry Neal.
Hey, and I am new and improved Alex Wallace.
And we are the Spoken Token podcast. Mr. Alex, sir, how are you doing?
Outside of the new and improved sound, which is thanks to you by sinus infection. I'm doing great. I have, so you know how, was it like 2 or 3 years ago, we had this wonderful segment called Project Play, and we were like, listeners, listen, and I, Larry and I are going to do something cool, and we're going to report about it. And every year, we never did it.
Oh, man.
Well, one year, remember we talked about hero clicks. Well, I fell into some hero clicks. By falling into, I mean they were at the store and I said I would like to buy them. And so I bought some hero clicks. And man, that is a fun game.
I mean, the system is very, very well developed.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
I'm going to straight up, like, all right, here are my pros and cons for hero clicks. Number one, pre-painted miniatures.
Yeah, me too.
Love that.
Me too.
It's so good.
Yep.
So good. There's so many fun poses. Con is that you have to buy them in booster packs, so they're randomly distributed.
Well, that was the fun part back in the day.
Yeah, but when you don't have a lot of money, it ain't good.
Well, they probably hadn't worked out the collation like they got it worked out now. Too,
yeah.
we probably got our rares and stuff way more than you
yeah. So, but still, if you're not into like the super competitive scene, it's not as bad. Right. It's not as bad. So that's great.
You're gonna play with what you get.
Yeah, for real. And so that's a plus. Is like you're instantly ready to go and play with what you've got. The system itself is really intuitive. I was quite overwhelmed. Oh, I do hear an echo. Is it the box?
I don't know. Keep going.
Is your volume here?
No.
Echo. I don't hear it now.
Nah, it's just when you get super excited.
Oh.
So what we have to do is say that, we're in the process of packing up.
That's true. The studio is moving.
West, yes, it's being packed up. And normally
Clarksville?
I have game boxes. Yep, I have game boxes. And then there's actually stuff in the other part of this big room that we're nowhere near. That's no longer there.
This is true. Your games don't absorb my sound anymore.
I noticed when I started taking stuff off in the office.
Yeah.
First of all, I was trying to do some work today, and I looked up to look on my shelf, and I was like, "Oh,
no, there ain't no more games.
They're all packed up."
Oh.
But the sound you can hear, and even I'm echoing.
Okay.
And that's what it is. Sorry, people.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, you get to hear us in stereo, actually. So that's even better.
That is not.
But
stereo.
Circling back around to hero clicks, I was a little overwhelmed. So this is a negative and a positive. I was a little overwhelmed by the amount of iconography that you had to learn.
Yeah, 10 years on. Yeah.
So that was a bit overwhelming.
It was overwhelming in the beginning.
What I found though is the new way that they've done it. They have a power sheet that has everything sort of labeled and
yes.
And the more I dug into it, it started to sort of reveal itself that even though every particular hero has a different name, their power effectively is the same across the board.
Yes.
And so that was a definite bonus for me and a plus, which I've really enjoyed. So thematically, they could have, Beast from X-Men could be acrobatic and so he could, traverse particular terrain. And then so his would have like, acrobatics or something like that. And then Nightcrawler could be like Banff or whatever. But mechanically, they're the exact same thing.
Yep. And it's been that way from the beginning. And
yes.
I said 10 years on, I was off by just a bit.
Oh, yeah.
It dropped in 2002.
Wow. Man, that's 20 years.
Yeah, that's how old the system is. And of course, I got into it in the much talked about Mech Warrior, but the system is the same, and that system is exactly the same as well.
Well, and I didn't and maybe I've talked about this before, but it just kind of dawned on me. I didn't realize I'd actually been introduced to and actually owned some hero clicks, but I owned Mage War. So this was
Mage Knight.
Mage Knight. Is it Mage Knight?
Yeah.
I thought Mage Knight is the board game.
It came from hero clicks first.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because then the board game became But yeah, no, I was in college on this like a trip, and there was this random store selling them for like 25 cents a pack, and because they were getting rid of it, and I'm like, I'm just nerdy enough to try this out.
Yeah. And they dumped it pretty quick. Mage Knight and I saw Heroes and Mech Warrior at the Great Escape downtown Nashville. The first time I saw it, I was working downtown at the time, and being a huge Mech Warrior nerd, I was like, no, they didn't, because I had a DC booster with me. I had a HeroClix first because I saw it first. I wanted to put it down somewhere else in the store, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. And then I asked the guy, did they have some more? He said, yeah, they're over there in the corner. So I walk up expecting to pick up a few more boosters, and I'll be playing with superheroes. This will be cool. And of course, I saw the Mech Warrior thing, and immediately I just set the hero booster down and just was standing at the wall like, oh, like, are you kidding me? Mech Warrior? And he was like, oh yeah. And so I bought the big. They had a big starter, and like, I don't know, man, 5 or 6 boosters. Get back to my desk, and I'm sitting there looking at all my stuff because this was on lunch, and I'm like, oh. And this was when I was friends with the IT group, and they had their own room upstairs. And so all kind of things which you imagine went on in that room. So the guys called me. And they did this twice for 2 different. This was the first time they did it though. They said, hey man, you should come upstairs for a minute. We got someone to show you. I mean, literally, they'd send emails to my supervisor. Hey, we need Larry for a minute. Because I was kind of pseudo helping with IT at the time. But I'm like, I just got back from lunch. I was like, don't worry, we'll send an email. My supervisor's like, Larry, IT needs you. Okay. So I go upstairs. I walk in there sitting there with all the stuff on the table.
Do they have Mech Warrior as well?
They were like, dude, have you seen this? I'm like, I just bought this in lunch. You're kidding me. This is crazy. So yeah, that was why I was so hook, line, and sinker into it. Oh man. Because initially I had that group of 4 other people. It's 5 of us. Yeah. We got 2 guys downstairs extra with me. So we had like 6 or 7 people. We played at work all the time.
Yeah. Well, and what's so cool.
Such a fun system.
And I've been looking for, skirmish stuff between the boys and I. Of course, we play Summoner Wars. We really enjoy that. War Chest. We tried Star Wars Legion. And I love Star Wars Legion. It's such a great system.
I got a bunch of stuff. In Legion.
Yeah. The problem is that it's just hard to get to the table because it's vast. There's so many pieces and different things of that. But HeroClix, hey, you wanna get a bunch of X-Men together? Cool, put them together. Let's go. Yep. And I mean, as long as your point totals match up, I mean,
turn you down to the little green diamond.
Yeah, well, no, it's a little bit different than that. So, and what I've learned is you know me, when I get into something, I don't there's no like midway for me. So I went
true folks.
I went online and I found a gentleman who had like 250 of them, and he's like, but they're all old, and the secondary market for these things is ridiculous. Yeah. Ridiculous. So I don't the way that they structure their system, so they have rare, they have common, uncommon, rare, and then super rare, and then what they call chase figures. Yep. I think super rares, there's like 1 per brick, and I think that's like 40 or 50 figures within a brick. But a chase figure, there's like 1 per case. It's ridiculous. Oh, wow. And I mean, so this one little plastic figure is going for like $250.
Oh, I know.
And it's ridiculous.
The only reason why the Mech Warrior stuff cool is because it's out of print.
Yeah,
but even that, still, some of those they're getting, depending on what it is. They're still getting astronomical amounts. I mean, the game, there's nowhere you can play it other than your own table.
Yeah, and that's the sad part about HeroClix. So the store I went to, Tabletops. It's a hobby store here it's a newer store in Nashville.
Ooh, field trip coming up.
Yeah, it was. I'm really pleased. It was a great experience.
It's going to have to be you though, because I'm gonna be a long way from.
Yeah, you're gonna be a long way from there. So you're gonna have to find us some new. Actually, I hear there's some really great stores in your area.
Oh, I can't wait.
But it's one of the few places that actually has a competitive HeroClix scene.
Okay, I'm back now.
Because there's not a lot of not a lot of in-store events for much of anything. Yeah. But I think HeroClix works great because it's easy to just to pick up and play around with what you've got. But that's why I'm leaning towards that. But what I was about to say was, I found a guy who was like, hey, I have all these commons and uncommons that I'm never going to use. Anybody want them? And I'm like raising my hand. I'm new and I have a kid and and he's like, here. And I mean, I got like just this weekend, I got this man sent me this huge box, like 230 figures. And we're like looking through and all these weird people we've never seen before, but it was still fun. It's like, now we can do everything. And then, and there's some of them. Cool. Yeah. So I'm
excited you learn the system because I still want you to play Mech Warrior.
Yeah. Yeah. No, well, now I'm ready. Now I'm ready.
System. So yeah. So now you'll have that.
Now I can do what was the little dump truck build that story you told me about, that guy that could beat everybody.
Oh my God. Don't bring back bad memories. Come on, man.
Yeah. So yeah, HeroClix. Got into HeroClix.
I even got the little ring. with the little dots on it with the Mech Warrior logo in the middle, and it was for turning the bases.
Oh my gosh! Oh my god!
Well, it was a pack-in, and I never forget it when we first got them. I never forget it, and we do need to move on. But they didn't announce it. You just we were opening boosters, and these rings were, what are these? Oh, a little Dakota ring. I mean, I get it. We're grown men playing with toys, but there's only so far you can go. And one of the guys was like, and he turns it over. And he said, no, these are the turn them. And then everybody's grabbing them because they were all in a pile. We were like going to throw them away because we didn't know what they were.
Yeah.
I think I have a couple of them still in my box. But no, those were, because they only did that and they never announced. They just did it. And then they stopped. So as long as I played it again, when we pull it out with new players, and like, where'd you get that? I want one. Well, you're a noob, so
yeah,
you can't have one.
So you said something that I actually have been meaning to talk to you about.
Okay.
And let's actually get to it after the break.
Well, we're going to do the intro, I guess. Is it a break or the intro?
It's a break, Brintro.
Break, intro. Break, intro. Brintro. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome into the Spoken Token Podcast, this time episode number 105. Join us as our hosts dig into the mechanics of dungeon crawlers, what makes them tick, what to look out for and to expect with a session when you're playing a game, and great examples of the genre. Then, we cover games that we are late to the party on, but should not be missed, and so much more. So, sit back, relax, set the timer on those cinnamon rolls, and turn us up as we join our hosts, Alex Wallace and Larry Neal.
And we're back. So something that I became keenly aware of while I was playing HeroClix, and you just mentioned it a second ago. Have you ever really marinated on the idea that we, for the most part, are grown people playing with toys?
I mean, when you say marinated on it,
but if you really think about it, a huge portion of our hobby is are actual toys.
My first question is, and so what's wrong with that?
Well, but so this is where what I traveled down and what I started to sort of think about.
Yeah.
Because I got this huge collection of HeroClix, and my youngest son and my middle son came up and were like, "Oh, so cool!
Yeah, they did.
Things to hit." And,
yeah, they did.
And then my first reaction is, no. And then
Which was correct.
But I thought, wait, no. No, absolutely not.
Well, I mean, it's all in the marketing of, they marketed it because, and it's not WizKid's fault because they didn't come up with the IPs.
Well, I'm just thinking in general, but think of how many games have detailed miniatures that look like action figures or toys.
Right. And I don't see those as such, though, and the only reason is because the era that I come from, when I was young enough myself to be that way, they were nowhere near that detail.
That's fair enough.
And I could always tell the difference between something that was a toy for me and something that my older cousins was like, this is what I'm working on. If somebody put something on a table and had a light on it and they had a paintbrush or they glued it together, that wasn't toy to me. That didn't signify toy to me.
Okay.
That a toy is something I rip out of a blister pack and go right to play with.
All right.
And I'm not really. But I get what you're saying, though. No, that's a good point.
It's more me just musing and not necessarily. But I mean, because you think about I looked at a number of things like, man, I do. I have boxes of toys.
I was much younger when I first did with Mech Warrior because it came out around the same time, and I was working at NextLink, so this was prior to 2003, and it never dawned on me. I mean, I was 2003, so I was in my 20s. And it never, 30. Was I 30? Anyway, I was much younger than I am now. It's 20 plus years ago. And it never dawned on me sitting at my desk. I never thought about it, opening those up. I never thought about what the people around me thought or cared. I never once gave it a minute's pause.
Well, and I've been in
they want to sit there going, that dude is just a really big geek.
Well,
I don't know.
I've been in the hobby for 10 years, and this was the first time I really thought, I'm literally playing with toys. Yeah. Like I'm moving these people around and imagining, a combat and a story.
Well, I mean, yeah. From that standpoint, absolutely. I think part of what it was, of course, the dial. Jordan Wiseman came up with the whole system initially. The dial had the Mech Warrior piece. I don't think he initially designed the game. I probably misspoke on that, so I'm gonna retract that. I know Mech Warrior was in at the beginning, but at any rate, the dial, of course, has all the stats on it, and so that keeps you from having to need a separate sheet.
Yeah.
So that lowered the barrier of entry. Then they pre-painted the minis. So that was another barrier to entry. And then, of course, the terrain and the rules and stuff were made as simple as possible. Hardcore, quote, air quotes, war gamers really disdained the system when it first dropped.
Yeah.
They just at first looked there like, and they literally were like, oh, that's toys. But it's been going now for 20 plus years.
Well, and I'm not even just specifically talking about HeroClix. I'm thinking about, like, I look at my monumental game where, like, again, just a bunch of minis and you know, you move them around the map. I'm thinking of, like, my Western Legends. I mean, anything that has a detailed miniature that I'm moving around the board and I'm creating the story. I mean, like, well, I guess
I get it.
Here's and you know, as I sort of unpack this on the air, I think what I'm coming to realize is that even as an adult, there's still something transcendent about imaginative play.
Oh my goodness, yes.
You know, I mean,
we should never stop playing.
Right. Well, and as adults, we actually just need a little bit more. We need a little bit more barrier to kind of direct us to this.
Right.
But that's what we're doing.
And the level of the actual material, again, like I said, because again, you know, the average, you know, 5-6 year old, you hand them any halfly competent sculpted thing out of a blister pack and they're fine. They don't need you know, an insanely detailed miniature because they're not going to appreciate it anyway. And I don't mean that in a negative term. I mean, they're not going to take the time to look at it. You know, this is good guy, that's bad guy. They're done. You know, I'm going to shoot, pow, pow, pew, pew. They're going to throw them. They're going to fight each other. And that's it. They're not going to look at the fact that, oh, wow, look at that. They sculpted the individual rivets on his gun belt. I mean, they don't care about that. So that's one of the levels, like you said, I guess. It's a really interesting thing that you bring up. Because that's the quote unquote adult side, but when it breaks down to exactly what you're saying.
Yeah,
we're just adults playing with toys.
Yeah.
I love it. I have no problem with it.
Yeah. So I'm encouraging all of you just to sit back, to think,
play more,
to enjoy yourself and your childlike attitude of playing with toys.
Yeah, play more. And we are already into. This was a quick question. I'm glad you brought that up. But we want to do some first impressions. Is our first segment up today, and let's talk about a couple of different games. We each have a game we want to talk about. And just remind everybody what we do. We talk about basically, literally just that, the first impression. We're not trying to go very in depth. We're just giving you how we felt and what we experienced the first time we sat down with a title.
And maybe it'll give you a little bit more information when you're engaging with or looking for, like, should I pick a game up? Or, you know, I don't know much about this particular game before you go to play it, and or, you know, just what to expect.
Right. And with a very, very big disclaimer that chances are when we play this one more, we get an opportunity. What we're about to tell you now will most likely change. Because, again, this is our first impression. Mr. Alex, since you started us out with such a great question, why don't you keep us going and start us with your game this time?
I got games.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I got first impression. I mean, of course, it was.
I see that.
Yeah, it was. See, and because it was Christmas, and Christmas was good to me.
They catch everything. What happened?
Yeah, it was Christmas. But I do have, like, I have a kind of a unifying factor for both of these games. They both start with the letter C.
Oh, nice.
So I mean, that
Brought
makes
to you by the letter C.
That's right. It's a Sesame Street game. No, it's not. So the first game I got to play was one that I have been really excited to play for the last several months, and and that's Qubitos by John D. Clare. There's nothing new. There is nothing new in this game. Except
it's John D. Clare, man.
I really feel like it's the first time someone's put them all together.
I'm sold.
So,
it's John D. I'm sold.
It is. So ultimately, Qubitos is a racing game, where you are taking a handful of dice and you are rolling them, and to ultimately buy new dice. And so, if you'll think Quarriors or if you'll think Dice Masters, it's a system just like that. So it's deck building, it's pool building, if you will, with the dice. But then you roll the dice, and each dice has a face that corresponds, a face and a color that corresponds to a particular card that has its special abilities. There are numerous cards for each dice, so that no game is ever the same.
Right.
And there are 4 boards in the box. Like, there is so much variation in this game that unless you try to, I think if you were to truly randomize it, I think you could play a new game every single time. It is a blast. Yeah. It is a push your luck game. But even pushing your luck, you can still keep it even if you bust when you push your luck, you can get a benefit for it. Right. I really enjoyed it. We laughed. It was a tight, close game each time. And so this one is not hard for anyone to learn. It is easy to teach. I will say it's the big caveat for me, or kind of the pause I give in like recommending it wholeheartedly, is the number of dice, like the calculating how many dice you roll each turn can get a little overwhelming, because there's turns you could be rolling upwards of 12 dice.
That's a hallmark of John D. Clare.
So, but it's really fun to roll that many dice too, and so just the managing of the dice does get a little bit cumbersome. But outside of that, it's quirky, it's fun, it's the downtime is really, really low, so there's no lag.
That's great.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. So that's Qubitos, John D. Clare, published by Aldrich Entertainment Group. So that's my first one. I'm gonna let you go get your first impression on.
Cool.
And then I'll, which I still think this should go to.
We're gonna do it as a first impression, but I was gonna throw an A side. There's an old Babylon 5 war game system out there that you could, in some turns, each die represented a weapon.
Okay.
On your ship. It was the Babylon 5 races.
Okay.
So the Centauri and all of those guys. And there were some scenarios where you could be rolling up with 36 dice. Glorious.
Why would you want to roll that many dice?
Glorious. I mean, you had to do them because, again, one die per weapon. Okay. So, I mean, it's not like you made, and very few people did. I mean, you didn't have me, but you'd have to roll that many times.
You know what, as you said that.
But when you said 12, I'm like, 12.
I raise you Babylon 5.
Oh, it's so good. Okay.
You know what? Here's what I'm thinking. Now that I go back, I may put in some cups like Race for the or Roll for the Galaxy has. Oh, yeah.
So close to putting it on my list. I didn't, but I was so close to my Christmas list. But okay, so mine is going to be one, and just being fair, I have been exposed to this one in two different mediums. And initially, I was exposed to it on Board Game Arena, and then it impacted me so much that I asked for a physical copy and got it. And so, in my increasingly mythical Christmas list, I'll talk about what that means in a little bit later in the show, maybe. And that is Parks, and of course, that is by Henry Audubon, published by Keymaster Games, was released in 2019. So, first impressions. I mean, you can't be in board games or be interested in board games without having seen a picture of this thing.
Yeah, and that's why you're just late to the party on this one.
And it's not possible to have seen it. Well, no, but this is still my first impression. I had seen the pictures of the game, and I know Keymaster's art, and just we had a lot of other things going on.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, of course, you had a copy for 15 seconds.
I kickstarted it,
and then you let that go, and I was like, well, okay, and then I'll get around to it. But then because I never played it with you.
Oh, okay.
So then I played it. I never played it. My first time playing it was on BGA. And so when I played it, I'm like, this is fantastic. And what I'll do, I did, you know me, I wrote quite a bit, and I want to get to some of these points. But I'm going to do a TLDR because, it's 2022. And so now, Alex always looks at me the way he's looking at me now. So I did TLDR, buddy, and I was thinking of you when I did it. I said, Alex will appreciate the TLDR.
I do, because sometimes you don't.
See, I'm still going back up, though.
No,
this ain't the end.
No, you don't need, because that's the whole point of TLDR.
No, it's not, man.
You were about to TL.
So much missed in the TLDR.
Exactly, that's the point.
The nuance is what we're going to get.
I don't need the nuance.
This is my segment. I'm giving you the hush now. Okay, here we go. So TLDR, Parks is a win. You come for the hype of the art if you must. I mean, if that's what's going to draw you in, fine. Then let that do it. It is that good, but you're going to stay for an incredibly engaging game that's easy to teach and to learn and to play, but it has enough depth to be the main course of a game night if you want to. It's not terribly long. So if you're saying, hey, you're getting together with people and you got a game night going on and maybe you don't have 3-4 hours to play something, but you want to play a good game, that's this game. The reason being is the way the system, guys, is super simple. What you're doing, you've got two people, you're moving them, you move them to get the resources. The resources are what you use to buy everything you need in the game, whether you're visiting the park or buying equipment. That's it. I just taught you the game. Now, how that changes based on the other players and the fact that you can never backtrack, which is why you have two people to move, that's where all the variability comes in. So when now you're sitting down with other people and you're playing, you sitting there trying to figure out in your mind, how am I going to make this line up so that I can get this park at the end? Do I grab this park? Do I go in first? There's so many puzzles that open up with this game. I played it with my siblings, who I've talked about on the show before. They're notorious not hobby level gamers, My sister, who bought this for me for Christmas, bought her own copy, and that's whose copy we played, because mine was sitting out here at the apartment. And we finished it. I wouldn't have put this in front of them, too. I didn't mean to. I never would have, because I knew, I'm like, so, I mean, they can get it, but they're probably not going to want to, because they're at that point sometimes where you start doing the rules. It's not a matter of, oh, that's clever. They're sitting there going, why? Why am I doing it? Why? Can we just play Monopoly? I mean, literally. I mean, I get that look from them. I mean, it's normally not Monopoly, but something else.
I have a Monopoly story.
Okay, and they're like, can we just play Uno or something? I was like, can we just play? I don't want to do all this. So I know that about them. I don't hold it against them. So that's why I wouldn't have put Parks in front of them, even though I know they could get it. But she wanted to play it. It was her copy. We went along with it. We finished the game, and what you said a moment ago, it was incredibly tight. I won by 3 points. So it was 26. 2 people were tied at 23. And then the sister whose copy it was, she was on her phone and stuff, taking pictures and stuff, so she didn't do too hot. So we're not gonna mention her score. But she wants to play it again. And I mean, overall, I mean, it was well received, which speaks volumes for that group. Because again, it wasn't aimed at them. It's not an entry level, more of a hobby type. I'm not really a gamer game. Because they're not. They don't really consider, I mean, they like playing board games, but they're not gamers.
I would say, and just to put my 2 cents in there, not to go against you, I think it's actually the lower level of the medium. Yeah. I think it's at the bottom of the sort of that medium weight, or at the top of the entry level.
No, I totally agree with that. I'm just saying they're in reality, that group of Sibs all together, not individually, but all together, they're not even on that list yet.
Yes, fair enough. And so
they're not even in that bracket at all.
Yeah, and I mean, for those of you who are looking for a Ticket to Ride style game that has meaningful choices, and can be taught easily, Parks is definitely is a good choice. It's a really good choice. Yeah. So real quickly, you mentioned Monopoly. I'm gonna throw this out there because it's wild to me. But over Christmas break with my kids, we were walking through Walmart. And I always walk through the board game section just, maybe to punish myself. I don't really know.
At Walmart, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I have a strong aversion against Monopoly. But my family really enjoys Monopoly.
Okay, then.
And so I passed by and I saw that there was a new version of Monopoly. It's called Builder Monopoly.
That's not very new, but yeah.
It's okay. It's the first time I'd ever seen it.
Yeah, it's been out for a minute.
Okay. Well, I found out that Tom Vassell hates it, but you know what? Whatever. But I played it, and I'm here to say it is now the only Monopoly outside of Monopoly Deal that I will ever play. So it has a great tactile thing that you build. It has some. So it's kind of like if Space Base, and which I'm going to talk about here in a little bit, and Catan and Monopoly all got together and said, hey, let's make one game where we do all this stuff. So I highly, if you are a gamer who's looking for a Monopoly to appease the family, this is a short version that I think you could stomach. Please don't send me hate mail. Just hear me when I say this is a version of Monopoly that a gamer could stomach. All right, so moving on. All right,
back to you.
Yeah. Okay, so this is my second first impression that I got to play. This is another one on my Christmas list, and I picked up, and it was Cascadia by Ryan Flynn, art by Beth Sobel, published by Flat Out Games. This may be my new Azul. It's simple yet cutthroat yet not super antagonistic. The art is beautiful. And so ultimately what you're doing is you are drafting a tile and a chip. A chip is a particular animal, and you place your tile in your tableau, and you have to place your chip on a place where that chip could go. And then there are several different scoring options based on animals and the biomes that each of the tiles represents, and that's it. And so it's super simple. It's really, really calm playing. But again, it can get a little antagonistic because you're like pulling stuff and you're seeing what everyone else is kind of working towards. And you're like, oh, yeah. Well, I want to work towards that too. It made a lot of people's top 10 list for 2021, and I can see why. Gotcha. I can see why. It's that perfect marriage of simplicity yet, I guess, interesting choice But yeah, so that was Cascadia. So if I'm going to recommend anything, if anyone go pick up anything tonight, find a copy of Cascadia, because you can teach that to anybody.
I will stand corrected. It looks like Monopoly Builder is new to 2021.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, that's the release date on it. Super cool. Well, I only had the one and you had the two. That's our first impressions. So let's step away for just a moment and keep rolling with the next segment. So we'll be right back after this. All right, we are back. Mr. Alex, this is a really favorite segment of ours. Funny, quick story about this one. When you proposed the title, I'm thinking, surely we did this, because under the hood, we talk about the mechanics and what makes a game. We roll our sleeves up and we talk about the mechanics inherent to a type of game, not necessarily any one. We'll give you some examples in the genre. And we're doing dungeon crawlers or something. I'm like, surely we've done dungeon crawlers. So I crawled all over. I did a dungeon crawl all over our foe, and we haven't.
We haven't.
I was blown away by that. I said, wow, we haven't done that. I'm super excited. So this is what we're going to get into. We just want to talk about, from a mechanics perspective, the dungeon crawl.
When a game is classified as a dungeon crawl, what we want to do is we want to look at what does that mean? What are sort of the hallmarks of that genre, and what are some of the better games to look for when you're if you that's something you kind of want to get into.
Well, my list, that's a good point. I didn't do better per se. The list that I did to give you, there are examples of dungeon crawls, but they're ones that I personally have experience with.
Okay, yeah, cool.
So they're not in any order, but this is the list. I'm going to run it really quickly. They're going to all be in the show notes, so please look them up. So, of course, the Dungeons & Dragons Adventure System board games.
Yep.
Sword and Sorcery.
Yep. One
Deck Dungeon. Zombicide Invader. Space Hulk Death Angel. Space Infantry. Dungeoneer. Some flavors of Dungeoneer. Some of them are not in the dungeon. And then Lost Legends.
Okay.
And so I know there's some questions, but based on my next list, which is some of the things that dungeon crawlers have in common. Again, this is my list, and Alex is going to give you his.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking that stand out to me as games that are in this genre. I'm going to say Descent, Legends of the Dark, Mage Knight. For me is the dungeon crawl. Star Wars Imperial Assault, Massive Darkness, Gloomhaven. Of course, you mentioned Dungeons and Dragons. Isn't City of Kings? Would that? No. Well, I'm going to back out on that one.
Yeah. It's got a lot of my what do they have in common dots missing, but because of the setting. Yeah. Its setting is not inside of.
That's true. Okay.
That's the only reason.
So Sword and Sorcery. Yeah, and so mine aren't necessarily set inside a dungeon, but they all have the same. That's one of the things that's on my list. But see, I think okay, we'll have our different stuff, but that's cool.
Well, I mean, the dungeon first and foremost, all dungeons aren't medieval dungeons.
Correct.
So that I will say that.
Okay.
But they're set inside somewhere. They weren't. I don't have any. None of these games, believe it or not, are open world. There's no open world stuff. You're in something somewhere, whether it's a spaceship or a castle or a cave or
and that's where fundamentally
starbase, something that's dungeon-esque.
I disagree with that.
Okay.
But I think that is a semantics point, and I don't think that it's a huge difference.
Gotcha. Well, here's my list of what they have in common. So we can run that, so we can get that out there. So they have miniatures-based movement on hexes or squares or etc.
Yes.
Your placement of your miniature is very important. You have a party or a solo hero exploring a structure filled with foes, which is where I got that from. Mm-hmm. Loot and treasure system is highly developed. Mm-hmm. There are multi-step player turns, so it's not one where you just do one thing and move. You're going to have several steps to do. There's a high degree of player customization, so you're going to be able to add stuff to your people and build and get better. There's increasing difficulty as you go along. They're either specialty dice or you got handfuls of dice to be chucked at some point in time. The maps are highly customizable. There are also environmental challenges to overcome. Mm-hmm. So you want to always be fighting some beast or monster. It may just be a rock slide or a poison trap.
Right.
Their campaign play, they let you see your heroes tell a story. They have those in them, and it's not what they're made of. They have the option to do that. Skirmish modes usually can be present also, so you can just throw some minis down, throw some foes down and fight. And the last thing I had was highly involved combat, mini stat checks, die rolls, and that type of thing. So that, again, that's just a few things on the list for me that dungeon crawls have in common.
Right, and I would say the one that I would maybe put an asterisk next to, not all of them have dice. Some of them use card systems.
And actually that's true because one of mine does. Because Space Hulk Death Angel does not use...
Right, well, and Gloomhaven uses cards as well. Mm-hmm. But one of the what I really love about dungeon crawls are born out of the love of role-playing games. because this idea of highly customizing a character and then progressing as you go along.
Yep.
I believe for me, that is the hallmark. Or well, no, I'm not even going to say the hallmark, but that is the thing that draws me to a dungeon crawl is I love the sense of progression. I start the game like this, and then as I accomplish more and more, I get better and my actions get better, or I have the availability to do more. One game I didn't mention in my original list is because I sort of want to talk about this one at length, is I actually have one game that I believe to be the best dungeon crawler ever made. And I will be able to defend my answer, whether or not. But I'm going to say that Shadows of Brimstone is the quintessential dungeon crawler for a number of reasons.
For you.
Correct. For me.
Yes. Oh, yes. Of course.
Well, not even. No, I would put it up there as objectively. I believe it could be considered the best of all time, even outside of me.
For you.
No. I
mean, you can't say that for me because.
But we put it out there. It could be a contender. How about I'll just say it's a contender.
It would be the game you would nominate.
It would be a contender. Yes.
It would be your nomination.
Yes, it would be my nomination for the best dungeon crawl of all time. Okay. And here's why. Number one, and you can just say remove the setting. But the setting is really
that's important,
evocative to me, and it's set in the Wild West, but has a little bit of a horror tinge to it. They do now have a set in the East now. So there's samurai with Forbidden Fortress. But ultimately, as you move along, you have character stats, and those character stats, they evolve as you go. You're rolling dice. I mean, everything that you've mentioned, it does, and it does it well in a thematic way. But I think the thing that Shadows of Brimstone does that makes it better than, say, like an advanced Dungeons and Dragons game is that the sense of progression is
no hanging fruit there, buddy.
Well, but is immediate, because I remember Wrath of Ashardalon was one of the first major board games I ever bought, because the promise of a D&D campaign on a board game,
those promised way more than they delivered.
Oh my gosh, it was so disheartening when
not for me, but yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying.
When I played for an hour and then I got to flip my character card over and my numbers were just a little bit better, it was so disheartening. Because, Dungeons and Dragons, the allure is my character gets to evolve into this person that I create. And Shadows of Brimstone,
the reason why those games the reason why the D&D adventure games are still going is because they're made by and marketed primarily to people like me that are more journey people. And you're a destination person. Because you're right. Their destination is kind of non-existent, but the journey on those games is fantastic. And it is. The journey is great. What pisses you off, which I get it, is that when you get to the end, you feel like you did all of that for nothing.
No, so you're wrong. You have it flipped. For me, it's the journey.
It's the journey.
No, because
it's just the end.
That game gets you to your destination real quick. The journey is I want there to be incremental and meaningful progression.
Well, I mean, you get that depending on. We're looking at two different places. I see what you're saying. You're thinking campaign wise. I wanted that game never expecting to play a campaign beyond it being a board game. I knew that. Okay. I knew that. Before I opened it, I knew this is not something that's going to stretch out that I'm going to put up and pick it up when I play it.
And another major allure for me for the dungeon crawl is that it gives me the role-playing aspect without needing a table of 5 other people.
Gotcha. And I don't.
Does that make sense?
It does. So that's nothing I look for in them.
Because Wrath of Ashardalon, I got it to play by myself. Because I was like, okay, because I can do this by myself. I can play the game. Because it was cooperative.
Yeah, because I have the Castle Ravenloft and I have the Drizzt one.
Yeah.
And I love them both.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Again, I had a blast with them. Again, expecting it to be contained in that box this session.
And that one is more of like your hero is like 4th level, 5th level. So he's already pretty decent. And so you just kind of move in.
Again, no, I get what you're saying. And I mean, it was, that system was never going to meet that expectation. Mm-hmm. Even though I understood all of that stuff, I had no expectation of that.
And I'm
playing a board game. This one time I'm about to play this, and it's going to have nothing to do with the next time I play it.
And that's fair. And I think that's an important distinction to make as a board gamer. Yeah. If you want a dungeon crawl, you need to understand what you're searching for. Yeah. Because if you're like me,
you can do that, but they're going to take work.
Yeah,
well, not money, but work.
Yeah, but see,
you're going to have to go and do some fan stuff because you can string them together.
Yeah,
but you got to do it yourself.
Yeah, but there are. I would say that there are more games like Wrath of a Shardalon that are just meant to be like popcorn episodes. Yep. Opposed to long form storytelling.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I think it fits so many other pieces that's why it's here. Uh-huh. But that's why I said low hanging fruit. I was like, yes, it's probably the most shallow experience in the list. But it's true though. All your points are good points. I mean, they're good.
Well, points. I think that's why so many people bought Gloomhaven is the promise of this of customization. Yeah. But what Gloomhaven and what one of the things I love about Gloomhaven is that Gloomhaven never tries to sell itself for anything that it's not. Like it tells you like, you're going to spend 100 hours on this. And people are like, no, that's going to be great. I do that. And then, most people only get like, 5 or 6 hours in and like, oh. Yeah.
No,
but the idea of like, you're creating the story as you go along. But again, that incremental, meaningful progression is the thing that I just love.
And what's funny about that, when you said they're talking about basically playing an RPG without the 5 people at the table, that's an admirable quality. I don't look for that in these games. Uh-huh. What I've understood about these games is that basically for me, they're adventure games, but they have way more crunch than a lot of other labeled adventure board games. And I mean by crunch, because I want to make sure since we're talking terms, we want to talk about terms. So what we're talking about that is they've got several steps in a player turn, like I said. So you're going to have to perform several die checks, which means you're going to roll your dice a couple of times. Not everything in your combat is going to be against another being, which we kind of already mentioned these things. But when you're having to go and check, say, your dexterity, which is a different number, there's a base number that you're going to have to roll. And maybe you're rolling a D6. And like with Sword and Sorcery, you've got D6 and D8s also. Mm-hmm. So maybe you're using the D8 for one and the D6 for another. That's what we mean when we say crunch. There's a lot of steps to the rules. If you look at it on paper, logically, it's bullet pointed, it's nice, it makes sense. But when you start digging into it, each one of those bullet points may represent two or three things you got to do.
Yeah.
And then you move to the next one, it's 2 or 3 things. So by the time you finish a bullet point list of 4 items, you've done 15 things. Mm-hmm. That's crunch. But that's one of the things that I love about them. Literally, to me, that's what I was looking for, was an adventure game along the lines of Runebound, just way more crunchy, right? And then the setting, I love the setting, I do. Whether it's medieval or whether it's sci-fi, I love that indoor setting where we're slogging through and we're turning the next corner and fighting the next horrible thing, or running from the ooze monster, or trying to jump across a pit. That's the part about it I love. The adventure aspect of it, I love. The things that you mentioned to me are pluses. The fact that I can do it by myself is great, or that I can sit down and you and I could do it without a table full of other people or Dungeon Master and have the same type of adventure. Those are huge pluses for me, but those aren't the reasons. What drew me in was, this is an adventure game, man. This is, I love Runebound. It's one of my favorite board games, but oh man, Sword and Sorcery is different setting, but it's still taking me on an adventure. I'm still getting the adventure. And I do like the customization. I do love that. Absolutely.
So, I mean, and I would say a lot of dungeon crawls will attempt, like, you're playing the same game over and over again, but they just kind of give you different flavor text, for each, and so they string them along. So I would say some games have again meaningful change in your character and story. Some are just like you said. You learn the system and it never really changes. I don't know if I'm making my point clear there. Regardless, just know what you're getting into when it comes to a dungeon crawl. Yeah. But because I think the gamut is wide for what is available.
It is, and the two things that we definitely have in common: the immersion is there, guys.
Yes.
So regardless of why you're there for the immersion, whether you're there for the adventure, whether you're there for the role playing part, the immersion on these things can just suck you in and be so delightful.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of my favorite things about dungeon crawls. And man, I love them.
Well done. Yeah, well said.
Awesome. Well, hey, we're going to take another short break and we'll be right back.
And we are back.
Hey, man, we were talking about it earlier.
Yeah, we late. We real late.
So we're going to do our segment we like to call Late to the Party. And this is what games that Alex and I are talking about that maybe we just found out about. Maybe they've been out for a while, but we're just getting on the train. Mr. Alex, I'm going to start this time. I made you start earlier.
That's cool, man.
So I'll start this time. And this one, for me, is Potion Explosion. And this one is by Stefan Castel, Andrea Crespi, and Lorenzo Silva. And this one was published by Horrible Guild. Love those guys.
Yeah.
And it was released in 2015. So Potion Explosion, I initially dismissed this one as a Marvel game trying to cash in on the Gizmos thing, and I was completely wrong because it's nothing like Gizmos. What I mean by that is it comes with a bag full of marbles in the box, and you think, oh, you got the marbles. Oh, it's like Gizmos. How they're cute. And you got a little thing, a little dispenser that dispenses them. Couldn't have been more wrong, and that was definitely a miss on my part. I've seen Alex's physical copy of Potion Explosion. When he got it, he had some issues. I can let him cover those with the production of it physically, the box, the copy that he got. But we never got a chance to play it. So I recently did get a chance to play this one on BGA. I got exposed to it, and guys, it is fantastic. It reminds me of a game. It's a video game out there called Super Puzzle Fighter 2. For those of you who haven't played it, you need to go look it up. It's fantastic.
You do know there's a board game version of that.
I know, but this reminded me of the video game version. And in that game, I'm not. I was going to talk about it, but I'm not. And just go look that one up. It's delightful. It's a Tetris type game. It's a battle game. It's 1v1. It's a puzzle game. The puzzle pieces are falling down.
And Puzzle Strike is the board game.
Puzzle Strike. Okay. Yeah. You're dealing with the colors and you're trying to do crash gems and stuff. Look that up. That was a terrible explanation, but look it up. But where it reminds me of it in Potion Explosion, what you're trying to do is you're trying to remove colored marbles or a colored marble, such that when the marbles that roll down, because it's all set on a downhill, they're coming out of a big dispenser, all the ones that hit each other that are the same color, you get to now take. And you're using those because you have the little potion bottles that you're using, and you have to sit marbles on them that match the color because each of those colors represents an ingredient. So you're having to do the ingredients to build your potions. So you want to try to get as many crashes as you can where you're pulling one marble out and then a bunch of reds hit. You take those out, a bunch of blues hit. You take those out, a bunch of blacks hit. Hey, man, you're in business. So you're trying to finish your potions. You get to use the potions. Each of the potions, you're not just building them. They do something. So you can get them. You can use them. They can help you pull more gems off more gems. I'm thinking Puzzle Fighter. They help you pull more marbles off the board and or take marbles. So it's got a little bit of take that in it where you can take marbles from your opponents. And you build them. You only have option of 2 at a time. If you can get them both built, that's great. You get to pick 2 from the offer, and then it moves on to someone else's turn. But it's kinetic. It's a puzzle game. I don't have great puzzle game skills. You guys have heard that. If you listen to us, you know. But this one just sucked me in. I was really close to pulling the trigger on buying a copy. Funnily enough, the people that taught me on BGA were like, God, we'd never play this physical. They were like, we'd never play a physical version of this. Look, I don't know how you would. And I'm like, no, I mean, I've seen it. And again, Alex had issues with his copy. But I'm like, no, you just dump the marbles in the thing, and they come out how they come out. I'm like, guys, it's so good. And they hadn't heard of Gizmos. And I had my copy of Gizmos. We were on camera, and I showed it to them. And they were like, oh, well, that's neat. But they were still like, yeah, we don't want to try.
Well, and so there's also a digital version that you can get on Steam, and which I think
BGA
is
too.
BGA.
Either way. So and that's what helps because you can help visualize it. And of course, then the marbles they disappear from the track and go to your area. So that's true. The upkeep will be a lot easier. But it's just so delightful, guys, to sit there and figure out which ones you need to pull to get those crashes and then take them off and put them on your little paddles. It is fantastic. So that is Potion Explosion, released by Horrible Guild back in 2015. I am definitely late to the party on that one, but probably going to end up getting a copy.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I mean, it's just satisfying.
The 2 big things that I needed, I meant to say that I felt like it probably needed. One stemming from dealing with you. Obviously, the little potion dispenser needs, as long as they get the production of that better, that needed to be stronger.
Well, and so my issue was that the copy that I'd gotten had been exposed to water. Yeah. And so it was cardboard.
Is not their fault.
Yeah, and it just warped, and then it just wasn't.
It's not going to work. Yeah, the dispenser's not going to work right. Yeah. So we need to get that fixed.
But there's a lot of 3D plastic versions, and that you can get on Etsy.
And that's what you got to have.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, and they're already sold.
And then more different potions, which they've done.
Yeah, there's an expansion out there already.
Yeah, there's a big one, and then there's several little ones. Yeah. I was like, look at all the different marbles. And of course, I mean, both Discs and Gizmos, the easiest bling in the world is to just put glass marbles in. Yeah. Who can resist that?
I know. Man, Gizmos is so good. So much fun. And no, Potion Explosion is really, really good too. The only reason I didn't keep mine is just because it was defunct.
Right.
And so,
which is not its fault.
I would never, like, I just never went back around to pick it back up again.
Right.
And so...
Well, hey, man.
Yeah. I might get
we can play it electronically long distance now.
I like that. All right, so mine is another game by John D. Clare. This one I played way back 2 or 3 years ago with Dave, and that's Space Base. Dave and I played this 2-player, and I said, I hate this game. This is horrible because Dave murdered me. It wasn't fun. And then he kept saying, let's play again. I'm like, no, I don't want to play this again.
John D. again.
Yeah, and I don't want to play this game again. Well, then a couple of months ago, we played it together in a 3-player game. And when I say I had a revelation, like it was amazing to me.
I love it.
that I went like, whoa, what's going on? Because at 3-player, it just popped, shined. It was amazing. So I just that one play really got me thinking about it. And then, so I asked for it for Christmas and I got it for Christmas and we've played it. I've probably played it 4 or 5 times since I've gotten it. And it's so wonderful. So on your turn, you're rolling 2 dice. And then you have a space station. So basically you have 12 slots that represent numbers 1 through 10. Each of those slots has some type of resource that you get. So when you roll the dice, you can either take the combination of the number and take the higher end, or you can split the dice and take each dice individually. You can only do one or the other. And once you do that, you get money from like your resources, and then you can go and you can buy better little space stations for your numbers, and that increase them. So every time you upgrade a number, the card that you had there flips upside down, and now anytime another player rolls that particular number, following the same rules, either you can do the combination of or the split in between. You then get another little bonus, and that little thing right there. I mean, otherwise it's just Machikoro, but the fact that it's one of the built-in pieces of the mechanic is that you're always getting something on someone else's turn is so rewarding.
Yeah.
It's built into the game. Like, I mean, just kind of the creep up of how you get resources and stuff is dependent on you getting resources, but it keeps you engaged at every level of the game because you're always watching what the other person rolls because you're going to do something on that turn. And I just think that's wonderful.
Love it.
And so because it keeps me going, or involved in everyone else's turn, I think that's so important in games. And so that's Space-Based by John D. Clare. It's not a hard game to learn. This one, I recommend for kids. I recommend for adults.
Yeah.
It's a hit. It's great.
I'm looking forward to playing it.
Yeah, so good. Well, we're not gonna play it 2-player because I refuse. That's I'm telling you, it's bad.
You're probably gonna win. But
it's bad at 2-player.
You're probably gonna win.
Nah, I don't want to play it 2-player. It's not fun. It's not fun.
Well, hey, moving forward, when I come down here when we get together, trust me,
we'll have other people.
Yeah, we won't be playing 2-player.
That's true.
So really, really cool. So hey, we're gonna say a quick wow.
Wow.
I'm trying to think I don't think we have any housekeeping to do. I mean, everybody knows that I'm getting ready to move. So, but we're gonna keep the same schedule. Not tooting our own horn, but Alex and I are gonna work really, really hard to make sure we keep the content coming for you guys. But that is looming, and it is fairly large.
Yes.
I'm literally moving everything. So, so just keep us in your thoughts. And of course, as always, guys, remember to interact with us if you want out there on social medias. We are there. We are always willing to interact with you.
Hey, and also I want to quick shout out. If you're new to us, like if you've just discovered us recently, please send us something on Instagram or Facebook.
Or our guild on BGG.
Guild of BGG. We would love to hear from you. Tell us what you like about this show. Tell us what you don't like. I mean, because we always want to be better, but we literally have not heard from anyone. and so we don't know.
Not true. In a while. Not true. We hear from people.
Well, we hear from Rick.
Rick's people.
Yeah, Rick
and so is Dave.
Yeah, we hear from Rick and Dave.
Dave's people too.
You're right. I'm just saying, anyone else out there, if you...
And I've actually heard from some people at work, so there.
Oh, okay. All right, they talk to you. They don't talk to me. So...
Well, we still heard because this show is us. Not me.
Fair enough. Okay, but we'd love to know what you think, what we can improve on, what you'd like to see more of.
That right there is probably why they don't come to
us. That's true. It's true. Excuse me.
I don't want to be involved in all that.
So again, please communicate with us. We'd love to know like what you got going on. I mean, and if there's things that you want us to talk about, we can do that. We can do the research and bring up that topic, maybe get some involved. So again, reach out to us. Larry, why don't you give them our all of our contact? We got like, don't I say that at some point? Like you got me saying that now?
We all say that at some point.
At some point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You gotta listen all the way through.
Yeah, there's like a canned thing, right? Yeah.
To the end of the show.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, for the spoken token, this is Alex Wallace saying, keep playing.
And this is Larry Neal saying, keep communicating. This has been the Spoken Token Podcast. If you would like to interact with us, please find us at Facebook at The Spoken Token, on Instagram at The Spoken Token Podcast. Our Twitter account is at The Spoken Token. Email is thespokentokenpodcast@gmail.com. And our BGG guild number is 2656.
Listening to a Pod Studio One Podcast Network podcast. Find more great podcasts at www.podstudio1.com.